Hello, I'm Gary Gillespie. Today I've been asked by our Deacon of Art and Culture, Jeremiah, to speak on creativity for art and business. Sometimes we miss the big picture in life. Have you ever heard the phrase, you can't tell the forest from the trees? Sometimes we get so caught up in the trees that we miss the forest. The fact that we live in a created universe is one of those big picture ideas that we sometimes miss. At our church, Advent Anglican, we believe that everything around us is an artifact of the creative power of God. We live in a created universe. Every Sunday we say, we believe in God, creator of heaven and earth, of all that is seen and unseen. Last time, Drew did a great job explaining the big picture of traditional faith as expressed in the creeds. One idea that stood out to me is that we know God is mighty because he is creator. Everywhere around us, we see objects of beauty and wonder. It's as if we live in a giant museum filled with artifacts that inspire praise for the artist, our creator. Traditional faith says that humans were created in the image of God. In Latin, that's the imago Dei. And we share God's knack for creating things. We get satisfaction out of finding innovative ways to meet the needs of others or express ourselves. Our culture values creativity. We are inspired whenever entrepreneurs venture a daring enterprise, when creatives unearth new beauty in music, literature, or art, or when scientists, techies, and engineers invent new discoveries that help us all. All of us, to some extent, are creative. So let's venture into the forest of creativity. Today we're going to be looking at one big picture idea that creativity in both business and art requires study followed by innovation. Let's look at creative choices in my art, the portrait, figure, and abstract paintings that I've made, as well as in the 3 companies that I've founded. At the end, we'll look at a brief faith takeaway. And halfway through, we'll take a break if you choose to stop this tape and watch it in 2 parts if you'd like. But first, a little bit about myself. After 30 years teaching public speaking as a college professor, I started making art seriously about 5 years ago. As a professor, I understood the importance of study, so I took 2 weekend courses by an organization called Artists Trust in Seattle that trains people how to become artists. In the class, they said that you must have a body of work if you want to be a serious artist, and you need to submit to shows. So I tried to do all of the things that they told me in the class. Since then, I now have 700 works on my webpage and have won 10 art awards. I'm represented by the East Side's leading gallery, the Ryan James Gallery in Totem Lake, and I've even sold a few paintings and appeared in several shows. In addition to creating the creativity of art, I also express myself in the 3 business enterprises that I'm involved with: my arts and crafts brand, outdoor sports brand, and a consulting agency. In the last 5 years, these businesses have generated more than $1 million in revenue. Almost all of that money has been put back into the businesses to grow them. I had no idea how much fun it would be to express myself in business, product development, and branding. It's been a blast. And I get to work with some inspiring people, including a former communication major who's now my business partner. People ask me how I got started in art. My wife, Teresa, has long been making art and is a constant mentor and helper. She understands color theory very well and is good at critiquing pieces. But I've been interested in art since high school and college days. At Western Washington University, I took a course in art and really liked it, but I figured, what kind of impact would I have on the world if I became a professional artist? Then a campus pastor advised us, if you want to make an eternal impact, choose a career that invests in people. I loved my public speaking courses and competing with the debate team, so I decided to invest in people and become a communication professor and debate coach. I was lucky enough to be hired as an assistant professor at Northwest College in 1985. It's now a university. My office for many years was in the basement of the chapel where our Advent Anglican congregation now meets. Every year I coached a group of eager students at debate and public speaking contests around the Northwest and the country. Topics are announced 15 minutes before each round, and so students had to be prepared to argue both sides of any controversy in the news. You might recognize this debater. During my coaching, our team reached the final rounds at most national tournaments. In 2000, NU ranked 10th in the nation. Here we are winning the Willamette Championships in Salem, Oregon. It's a large regional tournament, and that was in 1999. The student on the right is now an attorney in Mercer Island, and the student on the left is Jacob Witt, who went on to earn his PhD in linguistics and is now an English professor and the current debate coach at Northwest. I started my Amazon art company in 2015. Then I retired from teaching in 2016. I figured 32 years was long enough. Now I was ready for a new venture. They gave me a nice send-off at commencement. I even won an award. I designed the communication major at Northwest and taught human communication and public speaking in addition to coaching the debate. My knowledge of organizational communication, rhetoric, and persuasion helped prepare me for business. Looking back, I think of a quote by Corrie ten Boom. Every experience God gives us, every person He puts in our lives, is the perfect preparation for the future that only He can see. So let's get into the art forest as we explore artistic creativity. I'm a collage artist, which means that I use paper instead of paint. I also incorporate mixed media in my collage pieces. This painting is entitled Kingdom Within. It won the Northwest Collage Society 2014 Innovation Award. It has appeared in 7 shows and 3 publications, and it's an example of my art. My most recent portrait series was inspired by Mia Sarani. He's an instructor and historian at the University of Washington. He has an MFA there and is a teacher in our local area. In February at the Kirkland Art Center, I took a class from Mia. In his own practice, he often makes portraits on abstract fields. So that inspired me to start my own portrait series during the lockdown. In the class, he gave us an assignment to copy Lady with an Ermine by Leonardo da Vinci. He's the one that made the Mona Lisa. Mia believed that copying masterpieces helps you grow as an artist. So he said, make a copy in your own style. To differentiate my painting from the original, I added a second ermine, so it's Lady with Ermines. Mia thought that the bulging eye of my lady reminded him of the introduction to Monty Python's Flying Circus. Here's the first portrait painting that I made on canvas of Kurt Cobain. I started with bright orange undercoat of tissue that I put down, and then kept putting layers of other tissue and rice paper on top of that and some cloth. The dye from the orange tissue bled through to create a unifying effect. Here's another Kurt Cobain painting that I made, and the final layer of pink tissue that I put on his face looks sort of like skin. I used the same bright orange undercoat for this collage portrait of Maria Callas. She's an opera singer. The dye bleeding through unifies the composition. This painting portrait of John Lennon had a bright, hot pink undercoat. Here we have Queen Elizabeth that I put on an old canvas that had bits of burlap glued to it. I gessoed that old burlap, and it created a very uneven canvas surface that sort of contrasts with her elegant image. I added glitter to her crown and jewels. Then there's Janis Joplin. I reworked her hair several times to try to get it right. Karen Carpenter was a popular singer when I was in high school. And the final layer of skin for her looks like encaustic or wax. Then we have Jimi Hendrix from Seattle. This collage of skate legend Jay Adams has the orange dye bleeding through, and it sort of comes out his head and sort of illustrates his personality. This guy basically invented skating as we know it today. He lived in the Los Angeles area. He was a surfer, and he and his buddies would skateboard inside empty swimming pools and did tricks. Now here is a collage portrait of James Taylor, who is a folk singer. And I wanted to show you my processes in making the collage. I start with an undercoat. I try to make a rich undercoat. Then I add layers of tissue on top of it. I begin with a portrait from the internet. Sometimes I reverse and stretch the image. This undercoat has layers of tissue, cloth, and paint, and some spray paint to create sort of an atmospheric effect. I put down layers of the different kinds of cloth or cheesecloth, and sometimes it's other types of tissue with acrylic medium. Copy the design. I keep putting down different layers until the final image arises. This is Fire and Rain, which is the title of one of his most popular songs. So now we've looked at the portraits. Let's take a look at my figurative art. But before we do that, let me show you a picture of the Washington Monument. This monument was based on ancient Roman images of monoliths from ancient Rome. Sculptor and artist Bernard Newman wanted to make a public art sculpture, and so he took something old and established and tweaked it. He reinterpreted the Washington Monument, creating a new design based on a classic one, when he made his inverted monolith. This is outside the Sezuzalo Library at the University of Washington on Red Square. You've probably seen it. And it illustrates an important principle that artists do, and that is that they take an old and established form and use it for inspiration. Pablo Picasso said, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." Now, he wasn't really advocating plagiarism. He just believed that artists are always learning, and by studying the masters and emulating them, you're going to take on some of their characteristics and perspectives. Pablo Picasso himself made 58 copies of this painting by Velázquez. He went into the Prado Art Museum in Madrid and made these copies over and over and over. We saw this painting at a debate tournament once. And the principle here is that it's okay to borrow from other designs and to get inspiration from those who have come before you. One of my favorite artists is Arshile Gorky. He spent the first 20 years of his career copying artists that he admired. Paul Cézanne, Joan Miro, Pablo Picasso. Here's a copy or a painting based on the style of Cézanne that Gorky made. And here's the Cézanne painting. Pablo Picasso said that Cézanne was the father of us all of us modern artists. He was the father, and because art historians say that Cézanne was the first modern artist. Now, here's my first figurative painting that I wanted to show you. It's one of my more successful designs. Something in the Way. I usually title my art on music that I'm listening to. So anyway, Something in the Way appeared at a show at the Washington State Convention Center and in a literary magazine. It's based on an ancient Greek statue that I sketched. The collage elements on the left are Fred Meyer ads, in the middle figure Japanese anime, and on the right it's paint-dripped newspapers. Here is the Greek statue that I sketched, that I took the design from. We saw this statue at the Athens Archaeological Museum in 1998 at the World Debating Championships. I used that same design for this painting that has appeared in several shows, including one at the Bellevue Arts Museum. Invisible Men won an award at the Mercer Island Community Center. Here I took the images and stretched them and added cryptic letters. Botticelli in 1480 did his design of the Three Graces, which is an ancient statue and painting from Rome. And here's my version of the Three Graces, made with dyed cloth and cheesecloth. The Way You Look Tonight appeared in 2 shows. The undercoat is embedded with the lyrics of the Frank Sinatra song. So you can see how I base my designs on classical ones. This figure in a collage I entitled Choose Authentic is embedded with the corporate logos from different magazines. The corporate logos, if you look, they're kind of bleeding through his body. And it is based on a sketch of a statue that I saw at the Chicago Art Institute. You might have seen this painting, this devotional painting called Angelus, made in 1857. Surreal artist Salvador Dali borrowed the design for his version of Angelus. And here's mine, made with tissue and house-dripped paint. In another version, I added a third figure. Kenneth Callahan is considered one of the mid-century Northwest mystics that lived in our area. He was an artist and the director of the Seattle Art Museum in the 1950s. Callahan borrowed designs from ancient Chinese art. I liked this horse and rider, so I copied it. Horse with no name, sold at the Roslyn Art Fair. I reversed the image for Ticket to Ride. This horse and rider is made of tissue, spray paint, and wax. I was also inspired by another Callahan painting, this one a rowboat figure that I saw at the Northwest Art Museum in LaConner. I took the image and made my own design based on it, but my figure is riding on a paddleboard. I added a cormorant bird to balance the composition. This piece sold at the Cascadia Art Museum in Edmonds. It was part of a show in honor of the Northwest Mystics. I had 2 collages that were accepted in that show, and the other one won an award. So we've looked at some of the big picture, some of the trees. Now it's time to look at a big picture when it comes to art. Edgar Degas said, "Art is not what you see, but what you make others see." So the big picture here is that art is transactional. The best artists focus on a response of the viewer. Does the viewer grasp the beauty? Do they have an aesthetic experience when they see the visual art? Or are they confused? Here's a discussion question for you to think about. If you had to choose, which would be your favorite? Music with words or instrumental music? Portrait and figure paintings get an immediate reaction from the viewer, so you can transact with them easier. They see it and they go, "Oh, I know what that is." They can understand what they're seeing, but abstract art can be confusing. It's more like symphonic or instrumental music, because abstract art is about feeling and mood rather than meaning. So it's like, well, what does it mean? So it's about a feeling, not a meaning. Both abstract and other types of art, figurative art or realistic art, I think are good. So let's take a look at my abstract art. I've studied a lot of post-World War II art from my Pinterest research. This piece is based on the work of André Lanscoy from France, and it has appeared in a show at the Fiber Fusion show in Redmond and Everett, which traveled from Redmond to Everett, and it's won 2 awards. I call it Forever Young. It's made with tissue, spray paint, and cloth, dyed cloth. Shelter from the Storm is an atmospheric abstract that appeared in a show at the Kirkland Art Center called The Best of the Kirkland Art Center. And it incorporates calligraphy letters that sort of suggest an ancient Chinese landscape. Series of Dreams is based on a Hans Hofmann painting, another famous mid-century artist. I used collage and house paint like Jackson Pollock. This abstract is based on a mural by German artist Hans Richter. It won an award at a show at the Mukilteo Community Center. I call it Don't Let the Sun Catch You Crying. Now this painting by Arshile Gorky, My Mother's Apron, is on display at the Seattle Art Museum. It's a $20 million piece. His mother died in the Armenian Holocaust. He has a dramatic family story. He's the only one that survived from his family. And I've sketched this painting several times. I took the image, reversed it, stretched it on a Word document to make my own interpretation of the Gorky piece. I call it You Raise Me Up. Another Gorky piece called Apple Orchards I thought was really neat. So I took the image, stretched it, and wanted to make a collaged version. She's Not There is the first sale that I had at the Ryan James Gallery. So to find inspiration, I look to proven models. Whenever I base a work on a famous painting or try to copy it, I learn from the master. So I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. That's what Sir Isaac Newton said. If I have seen far further, It's by standing on the shoulders of giants. Now we've come to the end of our walk through the forest of artistic creativity. Let's stop the tape and discuss. Go ahead and discuss with your partner, someone near you, this faith question. What giants of faith lift you up? You've been standing on the shoulders of giants just like the artist in your Christian walk. So think of a teacher, a coach, a pastor, an influencer that you've known personally, or maybe it's a Christian writer, an historic or biblical figure. What giant in your life has influenced you? Go ahead and ask your partner for examples of how this giant influenced them. And that will be our devotional part of the walk today. Then, after you discuss this with your partner, if you want to go a little bit deeper and find out how I made $1 million in sales from my kitchen table, come back as we continue the walk through the forest of business creativity. Okay, so now you're back. We've looked at art. Now let's look at business creativity. And people ask me how I started my encore career as an Amazon seller. Well, in 2015, Teresa was dean of the business school, and they had an alumni banquet. I sat with the main speaker, a former student who was now $1 million seller on Amazon. And I asked him a bunch of questions. And he recommended a class by a group called Amazing.com. And so I went through that 7-week class, and they taught me how to create my own brand to sell on Amazon. You know, we live in one of the best times in the history of the world to start a business. Computer integrated communication has created a revolution in commerce. It's sort of like the Industrial Revolution. It's that big. In the 1990s, Jeff Bezos took a look at this new thing called the internet and asked, how can I make money off of this thing? He started selling books, and it worked well. So he developed his vision for the everything store. Now, Amazon sells $350 million worth of products, or 350 million products to customers around the world. Now, the definition of business is meeting people's needs by providing a product or a service. Amazon does that. They give customers often lower prices than they could find other places. They give them what they want, and they've developed the infrastructure to ship the goods to their doorstep in 2 days or less. It's a huge business opportunity. There are 300,000 third-party sellers like me on Amazon. And 50% of all sales on Amazon come from third-party sellers. So when I took the class, they taught us how to pick a product niche. They said, whatever you're going to sell, pick something that you're passionate about, because you're going to be spending a lot of time on it. So Teresa and I enjoy going to art museums and sketching when we're going out hiking or on vacations. So she suggested art supplies. So after studying the market, I narrowed it down to 3 different art supply products: paint, pencils, colored pencils, or sketchbooks. Teresa suggested sketchbooks since we had so much experience with it. So Lita Art Supply, LLC was born. I wanted a name taken from ancient Greek mythology, like Chevron or Nike. So I chose the Leda and the Swan myth. Leda was mother of Helen of Troy, the most beautiful woman in the world. The logo was based on a 19th century German beer logo that I found, and the final design was made by a graphic designer in India. Our mission is helping artists make the world a more beautiful place. I studied other premium sketchbooks to design my own. Then I researched stationery suppliers in the US, Canada, and China to try to find the manufacturer for the sketchbook. Now, only the Chinese suppliers were interested in helping us. No one else wanted to create another competitor. So we narrowed it down to 2 factories, and I picked one in Shanghai. Now, the Chinese basically invented paper, and they've been making stationery for hundreds of years. So we insisted on the best quality, and we got it. We have independent inspectors that look at the final product when it comes off the factory floor, and then it's shipped to our warehouse in Texas. From there, it's trucked to more than 100 warehouses for Amazon across the country. And now we have 4 sizes of the sketchbook, and it's sold 100,000 books in 11 countries. The first principle of product selection is study established products that are out there that you can improve. It's tried and true principle. So learn what people want and then innovate to make it better. For the Lita book, we added 54 more pages than Moleskine, the industry leader. We used softer art paper and added a nicely textured cover that makes the book lighter in weight so it's easier to pack around. The result? Geek Wrap, a product review blog, did an analysis of 10 different sketchbooks on the market, and they recently picked Lita as the best of 10. There are several buyer guides like that too. We have a 4.7 Amazon review rating with 1,000 reviews. When you add up all the reviews for the 4 sizes, it's more than 1,000. And on Amazon, we rank above Moleskine, which means our product shows up on the page before they do. And Moleskine is a $400 million company. Also, Lita ranks among the top 5 sketchbook makers in the world, according to an independent market research report. As a college debate coach, I got to meet some talented people. Kyle Hamer chose Northwest because he heard about the success of the debate team, and he thought that would be neat to be a debater. So he had already worked in business for several years before he decided to come back to get his degree. I was his academic advisor as a communication major, and he became a TA in several of my classes, as well as being a top debater on the team. He graduated in 2014 and was chosen as the commencement speaker for the school. The big picture principle here is that to succeed in creative business, you need to find people who can help you. Kyle knows a lot about ads and marketing. He's now a business coach in addition to being partnered with our businesses. Here we are at an Amazon summit in Seattle. They paid for our way to go over there. And earlier in the year, we were interviewed for a podcast about selling in Europe. After I took a class with a group called Marketplace Superheroes that taught us how to be selling in Europe, our business doubled. One of the highlights of our entire experience with Lita, though, happened earlier in the month when Lita rose to the top of page 1 on Amazon. Now, 85% of people that buy on page 1. They don't scroll down. And the higher you are on page 1, the more sales you're going to get. So we had been on page 1 for a long time, but this is the first time we were on the first line of page 1. It's a coveted marketing spot. We were so excited when we saw this. We are the first premium journal listed. The rest are spiral ring journals that are not as nice. So we were ranked 5 out of 65,000 products in our niche. In January, the New York Magazine did an article about notebooks, and they listed Lita Art Supply as the best sketchbook for artists. They quoted a review, and the guy says about the Lita sketchbook, the quality is impeccable, the price unbeatable, the craftsmanship superb. Once I get my next paycheck, I'm going to go out and buy 10 of these. I cannot lavish enough praise on Lita. After spending almost a decade trying to find the perfect sketchbook, I have at last succeeded. Thank you, Lita. Now, this is not a fake review. Just to show you that this isn't just a hobby, here's our sales for the last 30 days in North America and Europe. Here's an average day, 7-day sales earlier in the month in Europe and the United States. So 7 days of sales. And then here is 16 months of sales. And actually, Kyle we were just talking with one of our interns, and he said that when you add up all of our marketplaces, because of the increased sales from the virus that has happened this month, he thinks that we're going to hit $1 million of sales on all of our platforms with the 2 brands. But anyway, just to show you that this is a serious business. Part of the profits go to our designated charity, Art with Heart. This is an organization in Seattle that uses the healing power of creativity to help children and teens facing hardships. What about we've looked at my art supply company. What about my outdoor sports company? Now, sometimes people are confused when they hear that I have 2 Amazon businesses, especially when they find out that that second business is a skateboard brand. You don't look like a skater. How did you come up with that one? Well, it goes back to my experience again as a college debate coach. One of our top debaters that we've actually ever had at the school is John Swain. He was an avid skater, and he was interested in entrepreneurism about the time that I was getting into it. So we chatted and talked on driving back from debate tournaments, and he said he'd like to really work with me and collaborate in making a skateboard brand. So John helped design a lot of the early beginnings of the brand, but then when he graduated, he got really super busy with his other business, so his job. So Kyle and I bought him out, but he did help with the initial beginnings of the skateboard brand, including the company name, which was our first creative choice. We thought of Earth Surf. The domain was taken. Mean Skates, like that's a mean, lean skateboard you got there. When we tested it, though, the skater kids hated that name. Then Tangent Longboards. Tangent, that would be good, until we found out that there's a Tangent bicycle and sells 100 SKUs on Amazon. Ra, named after the Egyptian sun god Ra, but we thought that would be too obscure to explain. We were really frustrated until John came up with the name Old Boy. I put the 2 words together to form Old Boy, and Old Boy Longboards was born. Because we don't believe in slowing down. We picked a beard for the logo, and then I noticed that a lot of the designs of old guys skating with beards, they almost all had sunglasses. So we added sunglasses to the design. And then John said, oh, let's put skateboard wheels inside the paint panels of the glasses. People love this logo. In the class, they taught us how to pick a product. So our niche was skateboarding, but what product would we pick? Well, they said, go where the market is, find out what people want, and then improve on that product that they want by innovation. So innovation requires study. Now, we thought about selling skateboards, but the insurance was $10,000. So we went with wheel bearings instead. Software that we purchased, we typed in skateboard bearings as in the software that would predict whether or not you'd be successful, said that skateboard bearings was 4 out of 5. And it said that we'd be making about $5,000 a month, which turned out to be true. In the class that I took, they said that you want to try to improve a product, or if you can't improve it, improve the packaging. So skateboard bearings are skateboard bearings. There's not much you can do to improve them, except that we insisted on the best ceramic materials. So I looked at other competitors and I studied what was out there, and it seemed like their packaging was weak. There was a metal box that was boring. There was a cardboard box that looked like a matchbox that just looked cheap. So I came up with my own skateboard bearing box, a translucent pyramid. We stacked up the bearings inside this pyramid, and it looked great. People loved it when they saw this. In fact, it looked so good that we got a design patent, which means that Old Boy is the only bearings packed in a pyramid power box. We also made a retail display case box so that skate shops could set this on their counter. It has a plastic tray that holds the 5 different sets inside this box. We tried to get this into Walmart, but the Walmart said they didn't want it. They didn't think there would be enough volume. On Amazon, though, we've received the Amazon Choice Badge for ceramic bearings. So that means that based on sales and price, we, according to Amazon, are the best that they would choose. When people see this Amazon Choice Badge, we really get a lot of sales. So it was a huge success to see that happen. If you were to search for best ceramic skateboard bearings, you would find 15 buyer guides that say that Old Boy is the best ceramic bearings that you can buy. So we've been pretty pleased with the response, especially now. I mean, the Germans are going crazy buying, and we're actually running out of inventory. The reviews have been strong. Warren from DeLand, Florida says that he's the envy of his friends because he can skate so fast. And he said that he's tried many different types of skateboard bearings, but the bearings that come on most boards are simply no match. Old Boy for the win. Here's our Old Boy sales for the last 30 days. We get a check from Amazon every 2 weeks. And here's our sales for the last 30 days in Europe and the United States. Not quite as much as this art brand, but we're growing. Here is the last 16 months of sales for Old Boy. In addition to and some of the profits go to the designated charity for Old Boy, which is the National Outdoor Leadership School. This is an organization that takes disadvantaged youth on backpack trips in the Rocky Mountains. The guide there in the water is holding a Lita pocket sketchbook in his mouth because he uses the Lita sketchbook as a nature journal. In addition to bearings, we also have a fashion line. We have t-shirts, sweatshirts, knit hats. I designed a lot of this, including the 5-panel hat that has actually sold out. Old Boy longboards. And here is Old Boy keeping safe. I took that portrait of Jay Adams and made it into an Old Boy meme. You didn't quit skateboarding because you got old. You got old because you quit skateboarding, according to Jay Adams. Nico Johnson was one of my communications students. He was a film concentration major and was nuts about skating. He always wanted to make videos about skateboarding, and so we hired him to do our promotional videos. Just to show you how much fun marketing can be, here is Wheels of Legend, a video that tells you the backstory of Old Boy.
Hey, mister, wait up!
Oh, young boatsman, what need have you of me?
How are you going so long without pushing?
Fair question. My wheels are shrouded with the grace of the gods.
What does that mean?
Better question is how long I have been riding this one push.
I guess, but that's not really my question.
A long time.
Seriously, that isn't my question.
Celine. My love, you can't be here. You promised to Lord Bettenberg. It's not safe.
I don't care what the magistrates say. I want to be with you, Ricardo. Come with me now to the New World, just like we always dreamed.
Your father would never approve.
Damn my father. Damn the crown. And damn Lord Bettenberg. Please, come away with me.
I can't. My heart no longer rides with you.
Ricardo!
Please, don't make this any harder than it already is. Farewell, Celine.
Ricardo!
So did you ever see Celine again?
Yes, once. In Albuquerque, 2 years ago. She married Lord Bettenberg. She had some kids. And some grandkids. And some great-grandkids. She got old, dude. Totally dodged a bullet there.
Yeah. Wait, that flashback, did she say New World? Like, how old are you, dude? The way you talk, you sound like really old. Like, I'm talking dirt old.
Dirt. Dirt. From whence I came, I shall become.
Elizabeth.
Wheels of Legend has had 113,000 impressions on Facebook. Did you know that 50% of all sales are on Amazon? And these stats are before the virus. The impact means that almost every business is going to want to sell on Amazon. But it's not easy. So we got to thinking, maybe we should create an Amazon agency. Drew Conselman owns a counseling practice. I've been mentoring him in his own Amazon business, a kids bake set company. And I introduced Drew to Kyle, and we formed our own venture. DGK Partners was formed in February. And that's our holding company. But we needed a brand name. What were we going to name our Amazon agency? That was our first creative choice. We brainstormed 50 different names. Hard Ribbon, like Hard Rock Cafe. Knife Fish, a fish that swims in the Amazon. River Pilot, we're piloting tankers up the Amazon River. Stone Pillow, Blacksmith, Forge Space, Lumberjack, Paladin. We made all of these tentative ideas, but none of us we couldn't agree on any of them. And a lot of them were already taken. So Drew came up with a great idea, Seller Sage. In 2 words, it basically explains what the purpose of our company is. So it was the perfect name. Our next creative choice was, what logo were we going to pick? Now, a sage is like a wizard. So I was thinking of a crystal ball or a magic wand or a hooded figure. And to pick a logo, we went with a company called 99 Designs that puts on contests in which graphic designers from around the world can submit designs, and then you can pick which ones you want. Now, we got 380 designs in a week-long contest. Here are 8 of them. At the end, we went through the 380. We picked out the top ones that we liked the most and created a poll with our network. And what's neat about it is that the top choice of our poll was the same design that the 3 of us unanimously picked. And we chose this design for our logo. It's a cube design, Seller Sage. So we're going to help businesses launch and sell on Amazon by optimizing listings for increased sales. Here is the design. It's based on a Rubik's Cube, because I was thinking about crystal ball, and I thought, well, that's sort of a cultish. I don't want that. And I thought, well, for some reason, I just thought of a Rubik's Cube because it's a very difficult, complex puzzle that you have to have skill and knowledge in order to solve. Our first client for Seller Sage was a bedsheet company that sells mostly in Costco, but they had an Amazon listing that was very messed up. Kyle spent 200 hours fixing the back end of their messed up Amazon listing, and I rewrote a lot of the copy. So it was very much like solving a puzzle. So we're pretty pleased with this design. So we've come to the end of our forest of business creativity. And one of the most creative and innovative people of our time was Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs took his engineers aside one day, pointed to a desktop computer, picked up a notebook, and said, "I want you to make a computer that looks like a notebook that I can pack around." They said, "We can't do, that's impossible. You can't put the chips and wires and gears inside a notebook." He said, "Do it." When asked about creativity, Steve Jobs said, "Creativity is just connecting things." When you ask creative people how they did it, they feel a little guilty because they didn't really do it. They just saw something that seemed obvious to them after a while. That's because they were able to connect experiences that they've had and synthesize them into new things. So today we've looked at my art, my figurative, abstract, and portrait art. We've looked at my 3 Amazon businesses, Lita, Old Boy, and Seller Sage. And we've learned that study is the spark of creativity. We know that innovation requires study of successful models. Both art and business begins by improving on established forms. So now that you know that study is the spark of inspiration, I challenge you to go out and express your own God-given gifts. Or, as Vincent van Gogh said, go out and paint the stars. What's the faith takeaway? study is the spark of inspiration in our devotional life as well, as we know that studying the Bible and studying God's Word is really crucial. But there's also a thought experiment that I'd like to end with. It's a grand role reversal. Think of yourself as an artifact and God is the artist, or that you are the product and God is the product designer. If you were a painting, in what ways is the master reworking his composition in you? What weaknesses need to be switched out to make you into a more appealing product? How are you permitting the Lord to perfect his creation in you? As the worship song says, change my heart, O God, make it ever true. Change my heart, O God. May I be like you. You are the potter. I am the clay. Mold me and make me. This is what I pray.